Well, a couple of you have texted me and sent a message saying that you're not able to make it today, largely because why? Outages, electric, internet, over 2,000 people in Royal Oak are without power and such. So no trouble at all. What I'm going to do is kind of give us a quick rundown of what we would have covered in today's class, and then we'll let people do with it as they may. What I wanted to do was introduce a concept called the author-reader contract. And we'll talk about each of these terms just very briefly, because I think a lot of us are concerned about, why are we reading Alice in Wonderland and what are we supposed to get out of it and what's the point? And I want to suggest that all literature, all of it, when you engage it as a reader, requires a contract, or has implicit in it a contract between author and reader. The author, of course, has an intention and a responsibility to us, and then therefore the reader does too. And between the two of us, that book or poem or song or whatever it is, we have an expectation that it's going to fulfill or satisfy each of us. That contract each has responsibilities. So that's what I guess what I want to talk about. Think of it as an exchange of promises, I suppose. The writer promises something and the reader promises something in return. We can think about the writer's expectation, I think, pretty easily. For instance, if you start thinking about what writers have as a responsibility to us, one is that there is some degree of quality that if you think about a book that you really like, or a film that you really like, or one that made you angry, it's often because there's some quality of it that's missing. Either the special effects are so cheap in the film that you can't appreciate it, throws you right out of the movie, or the book is so cliched and dumb it feels like a waste of time. I think writers must do some things in order to be respected as a writer, and there are some things that should never be done. For instance, maybe the genre has some set of expectations. If I pick up a novel that claims to be a science fiction novel and there is no science, then I feel cheated in some way. Well, I was looking for some gadgets. I was looking for, something futuristic, but we don't get that. So it's the genre has an expectation. Likewise, a romance novel without romance, that's a problem. A mystery novel without a crime, perhaps. So next, the premise has to be fulfilled. Whatever the writer sets out to do at the beginning of the work, you expect that to have a payoff later on. For instance, again, I think if we start with a story that the boy has lost the girlfriend and he wants to get her back, and then we never hear about the girlfriend again or care about it, the premise has been not fulfilled, right? I think similarly, how the book ends, its endings have to be somewhat satisfactory. They have to be serious. And I think, for instance, if it feels like the hero's been working up to the end of the work all along to solve the mystery, and then someone else runs up, solves it for him real quick, and leaves, you say, wait, why did we run through that whole 17 chapters of mystery with the detective and it never gets solved? A lot of it has to do with cliches, things that we don't like that way. Melodrama, which is that overly indulgent, egotistical, narcissistic drama that is way beyond necessary. I'm thinking of, oh my gosh, who's that awful emo guy, villain in the most recent Star Wars films? Kylo Ren is melodramatic. He's so over the top it becomes absurd. Coincidences that occur without any reason for them. Worthless setups where there's this giant plot set up and it's dropped. These are things that a good writer is attenuated to, make sure that they don't do. And for that reason, we have an expectation that they won't. If they do, then the novel is bad. I know some of us are thinking maybe entertainment. The book has to be entertaining. I get that. I want to suggest that entertainment is only one form of an obligation that a writer has. That writer's obligation is to create interest. And entertainment is one way to create interest, but I don't think it's the only way. Sometimes we're not entertained, but we're provoked, or we're angered, or we're saddened, or we're made to question or wonder. And those are equally ideas of interest, but not necessarily entertainment. So that's what goes on. I think the writer promises, has an expectation that there's going to be some meaning that we're going to find, or something of value to us, and there's some level of quality to it. That's the promise that the writer makes for the text. The reader's promise is a little harder, and that's what we can play with a little bit next. Does the reader owe the writer anything? Is the reader simply a passive monkey just sitting there saying, please entertain me? Well, maybe not. If the writers put out all this quality, maybe there's something more for the reader to do. And likewise, maybe there's some things that the reader should never do. And that's where the contract goes, is that both sides have something to contribute. The reader, just as a couple of quick ideas, the reader should give the work a chance. I mean, I think there's something there. So you don't just read the first paragraph and say, nope, I'm done with this. Maybe we wade into it a little bit to see where it's after, what it's about to do for us, and maybe to give it a few chapters or whatever. I often say Ayn Rand is a terrible read until you get about 100 pages in, and then you start to feel like you're into something. So trust that. The reader's job is to trust a little bit that the writer has fulfilled that promise. Give them a chance. Obviously, read. If you don't read the book, it hardly seems fair that we judge it. And I'm not sure, though, that we fully appreciate what reading means. It doesn't mean like scanning our eyes passively over the page, or skimming quickly necessarily, or reading while we're half asleep. I think there are some strategies for reading and thinking that we need to look at, perhaps, and that's worth thinking about. Thinking itself. The reader can't simply read, but reading kind of suggests that we think, that we interpret, that we wade in and give some consideration to, and a reasonable amount of that, not just some blather, well, I don't like this one idea, so I reject the whole work. Let's think it through. And I think the reader has an expectation not to misinterpret, that there's a sincerity to the reader going into this, that I'm not going to misread or misrepresent the work as the writer has given it. There's probably a lot more, and there are probably some more specific ones. So I want to offer us, since we don't have the class per se here, we're going to skip all the activities and things that I was going to play with. But I want to offer you then an activity that you can try on your own. Think of drawing up a reader's side of this writer-reader contract. What would that look like? Think of maybe 3 to 4 pledges that you might make. Maybe it begins with whereas, and then you name something which is true of good reading or good writing. I therefore promise to, and then the behavior that will fulfill it. For instance, whereas a writer has made an effort to place a valuable meaning in a work, I therefore promise to give the book a chance in order for me to find that meaning. Something like that. There's probably some that are particular to you and your reading habits that you notice, things that have made books not work for you. And it may be partly due, at least, to your own time, place, habits around reading. Can you come up with 3 or 4 pledges? If you do, I would recommend write them out and post them where you end up reading most of the time. So you remember this as you go into books. I think you'll find the books become more valuable in the prospect. I'm going to do the same. But also, if you want to, post your ideas and your pledges on chisnell.com under the forums, so that it gets you the credit for the forums, but it also gives you a chance and others to respond to them. Or if you want to, send them to me for some more personal comments or feedback. And that's where we'll go. We don't have people here, so I'm going to save the potential game clues that may have appeared during this class for another time, perhaps, and we'll go for there. Hopefully you're enjoying Alice in Wonderland. We might have talked about the reader's contract in light of that. We were going to talk as well about what we need for each other as the year goes, online, live, somewhere in the middle. How should we be spending our time? And I'll work with the survey that many of you sent, and we'll go from there. So thanks. Enjoy your summer. Keep reading, and I'll see some of you in late July, I hope. Bye.